of power between parties, but within the party there's continual peaceful transition. Leader in community-based natural resource programs, etc. Always called an African success story, right? And it is in many, many, many ways. So one of the crown jewels of Botswana's conservation programs is Central Kalahari Game Reserve, which was established even before Botswana was a country. So Botswana became independent in 1966. So in 1961, 6% of the area, what was then Bechuanaland, now called Botswana, was set aside for the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, smack dab in the center of the country. 25 times the size of Orange County, twice the size of Massachusetts, 50,000 square kilometers. Now there have been people living there for many thousands of years, maybe even 100,000 years. I call them Bushmen, which is because most of the Bushman people I know call themselves Bushmen when they're speaking English, but people refer to them as San-speaking people. The groups living in the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, the Po, are one of the main groups. Until the 1980s, really across Botswana, when I first started working in Botswana, these remote areas, the government wasn't very much involved. They were really, they didn't have an army, they had very little governmental presence. But around that time, they discovered diamonds. And Botswana is now one of the world's largest diamond producers. And the government's been pretty responsible for using diamonds, and they've used them to build schools, to build infrastructure. It's not like a lot of other places in the developing world where the politicians have lined their pockets to obscene levels and no one else's share. They've been very good about it. But after that point, the government started to extend into these rural areas. Well, one area was they brought in a lot of consultants from the United States and other places to deal with their national parks. And the consultants were of the opinion that national parks should not have people in the middle. Of course, you know, the Central Kalahari Game Reserve, for people who've seen Cry of the Kalahari or read it, the Mark and Billy Owens were there at Deception Pan. It's one of the world's great wildlife areas. And so the people there who had been allowed to stay there since the park was established, as long as they were using traditional technology to harvest resources, which is a euphemism for killing animals with poison darts, right? And chasing them until they're exhausted and hacking them up, which is how people lived, had to leave. Now they fought it for a long time, right? For about 15 years. But finally the relocations began, and there were 3 relocations, and by the end of the 3rd relocation, of course, fortunately we had Peace Corps volunteers that are helping with the relocations, right? Something to consider. Very few people, there were just a couple people able to hang on, but basically everyone was gone. They had lived in a place called Chade, and now they were moved to a place about 10 miles away called New Chade, which was barren. Right, just a spot, nothing there. The government drilled a borehole, a well, because it's an extremely dry place. They had a well back at their old place, but they weren't allowed to go back to it. The well at the new place failed, they couldn't get water. People weren't able to hunt, which is how they supported themselves, or gather mangago nuts or other nuts, or roots, which is what people did to eat. And people tried to go back into the reserve, and in a very shameful way, the government of Botswana, the police, the army, the game scouts, beat people, tortured them, hooked up electrodes through their genital areas and things like this. Very, very awful kinds of things. Even there are alleged some killings, but clearly the torture and things like that went on for quite a while. So, as I mentioned, being in the settlement was not so great because people were dependent on government handouts, the land's undesirable, they didn't have any access to water or firewood, and of course they faced, as I mentioned, these diseases of civilization. Now there was a group, Kehani Pleni, which means First Peoples of the Kalahari, founded by a man named Roy Cesena, that sued the government. And when this started, no Bushman had ever been to the university, right? And only a few had graduated from high school. But Roy met people, he worked with Survival International and some other groups, and they sued, and they won. But even though they won the right to return, right, it was a tremendous victory. But even though they won the right to return, the government, the people in the government, the police, the game scouts, things like this, have steadfastly refused to implement the ruling, even though the government has agreed to do this. So again, they live in this terrible limbo. They can't go home. They're stuck there. The government has cordoned off the park, so they can't visit their homes. But what's there now at Chade, where they used to live? Well, they can't visit, but you can. Because Wilderness Safaris, which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, has a beautiful camp there called Kalahari Plains. So after you're off with your game drive or your game walk, you can take a dip in the pool. You know, it looks pretty nice. And you have a nice meal, have some drinks. You can sleep in your beautiful Maru tent with and suite facilities, right? And 10 miles away, the people whose land that is are living in cardboard boxes. And they don't have firewood, and they don't have water, and the kids can't go to school. Right? So this is a major issue. So when we're talking about things like ecotourism, about preserving natural resources, we have to be aware that there's tension involved. You know, I spent many, many years working with people like this, and I can tell you, and I don't mean this to be, this is not me being sort of flip about this, but while people have great respect for animals, and there's a big spiritual side to their understanding of nature among the Bushmen and their relationship to animals, they also never met an antelope that they didn't want to put a poison dart in, right? And so their idea of preserving nature and interacting with nature is really different from wilderness safaris and from the consultants the government of Botswana hired. So for about $1,000 a day, you can be there, and the wilderness safaris also offers a Bushman walk. So because they've hired people from Chade to come work at the camp. So while they can't stay there, they can, some of the fortunate people can go, a couple of the staff members who are Bushmen will take you and show you where they used to live. So the government of Botswana says, well, they're preserving these resources for all the citizens of Botswana. Tourism bringing an important income, true. A very important ecosystem protected, true. Biodiversity preserved, true. The Bushmen are citizens like everyone else, true. So they will benefit as well? Not yet. Right? We'll see if it's true. And also, I should point out that the Central Kalahari Game Reserve has one of the world's largest deposits of unmined diamonds. So maybe there are some other reasons why it's good that the Bushmen aren't there from the government's perspective. So, who gets to say how many children anyone has? Is it you? Is it our government? Is it Planned Parenthood? Is it the UN? What people do with their land? How they use their resources? Is there a difference between this is the Lamalero whale hunters of Indonesia killing a sperm whale, right? Most of us would think this is a sperm whale, you know, this is really, really awful. Paul Watson is going to be at Cal State Fullerton tomorrow morning. Anybody who's interested, 9 a.m. he's talking. And, you know, people have devoted their lives, they look at this, they say, this is an intelligent being. It's not that different from me in a lot of ways, as a person. And here it's died this horrible death, right? And, you know, look at how people are hunting these whales at Lamalera. But what else are the people in Lamalera supposed to do? Where are the Lamalera students here at Golden West College getting an education so they can change their life, right? How many of you are willing to give up your seat in a class? That would take many of you, because it would cost to bring the people from Wamalaira here, to change their lives in a positive way. So the outsiders aren't just saying to them, change because we want you to change, because we care about Wales. We don't care about your kids. We don't care about your life. We don't care about how you live or what you need to do to live. But this makes us feel bad, so we want you to stop. Don't we want them to be able to change their lives for the better from within? So is there a difference between this and that? Right? This is Japanese industrial whaling. So, you know, we think this should stop. Should this stop? And why? So I'll leave it at that. As I said, I don't have any answers. I just have a whole lot of hard questions to ask. Thank you very much.